Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. So stay with us. These are all great companies I used as an AD. You should be using them too. So take the next 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school records or your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. If you put one of these in your gymnasium, in your school lobby, your main hallway, it's going to be a magnet for kids, for coaches, for teachers, for alums and parents, for sponsors. You got to see it to believe it. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their great products today. We also want to thank our friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. It was an easy choice. Our coaches, our student athletes, our parents, they all loved the Huddle platform, and you will too. Go to huddle.com. It's used and trusted by 8 million athletic directors. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform you will use every day, whether it's scheduling, results, communication. For me, the athletic clearance and eligibility platform alone is the best. Go to homecampus.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. That's homecampus.com. We also want to say thanks to Snap. If you've ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results, SnapRaise is for you. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms, but we use the fundraising platform at our school, and it was a tremendous success. Coaches and parents loved it. I'm telling you, it works. Go to snapraise.com. Your days of searching for a fundraiser are over. Snapraise.com. We also want to say thank you to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let their team show you how to become a social media expert. They will have you posting world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Whether it's a social media post to celebrate a win or an entire newsletter to showcase all the great things your program's doing, the folks at Gipper can get you started. Go to Gipper.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast, Gipper.com. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. It's probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an athletic director. That's sidelineinteractive.com. As always, don't forget to mention the podcast. Sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thank you to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant athletic director, along with thousands of others, got his master's through the Ohio program, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're earning your master's degree, you're also earning 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Go to the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We also want to say thanks to Hometown. Now, Hometown is not just fundraising, not just digital ticketing anymore. They also include fundraising, but a whole lot of other things. Hometown's changing the game for schools and organizations with their new suite of solutions for things like, yes, digital ticketing and fundraising, but there's so much more. Athletic website construction, you really need to take a look at it. Whether you're an athletic director, a coach, or a school administrator, Hometown makes it easy for you to save time, raise more money, and bring your community together. To get started, just go to hometown.com. That's it, hometown.com. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. In my school, we use surveys for everything, kids, coaches, and parents. And the information that would come back on these surveys was almost always over the top positive, and it'll be the same for you. The surveys also connected us to those squeaky wheel parents that we probably already heard from. But having all of that positive feedback is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent, maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. It's athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of the Educational AD Podcast. It's one of our back to college episodes, and we've got a really cool guest today. I know I say that every week, but it's true. We're going to be visiting with Dr. Jennifer Jacobs. Jennifer has a tremendous background in athletics. She is the head volleyball coach at Augustana University. We're going to hear all about that and more. She also recently completed her doctoral studies, and the topic is just so spot on. You're going to have to wait for that. But Dr. Jennifer Jacobs, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so pumped to be here and get to chat with you guys.
Well, you and I connected on LinkedIn. I saw your profile and just said, "Wow, we got to get this person on the podcast." We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So, give us that quick bio: where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe just take us up through your own high school and college years, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Jennifer Jacobs origin story?
Yeah, oh boy, origin. Okay, well, I actually was born in Frankfurt, Germany. And most people are just shocked when they hear that, but I was born in the army and then adopted by an army family. And then like my home where I grew up for real is St. Paul, Minnesota. So I am pretty much raised all of my throughout formative years in school all the way through. Went to St. Paul Central, which is the oldest and most historic high school in Minnesota, in case you want to know that. The current St. Paul City Mayor, Melvin Carter III, was a classmate of mine. And so we have a couple other, kind of cool things. Dave Winfield of the Twins went there as well. So very historic school and loved my time. I grew up right by the Highland Park Golf Course and started playing volleyball in eighth grade, actually, working up in my school years. So yeah, St. Paul really raised.
Well, I'm guessing, it was maybe a kind of a big city or suburb experience for you growing up. What was it like? I mean, volleyball, there's usually not a volleyball net in the driveway, but, what are some of your early memories of sports, maybe even pre-middle school, high school?
Pre-middle school. Well, I started off with soccer, and being outside was just not going to work for me. And it was during a eighth grade gym class that the teacher found she happened to be a varsity coach in the St. Paul City Conference at the time, not at Central, but a different school. And so she was the teacher, and she said, "You know what? I really think you should try volleyball. Come out for the eighth grade team." And also during that time the sport of volleyball wasn't as diverse as it is now. I was really the only kid of color playing volleyball, and I used to have a vertical back in the day. And so people would always be like, "Why aren't you running track?" Because I was fast. Like, why aren't you jumping? Why aren't you high jumping? Why aren't you playing basketball? But volleyball just had my heart from the jump, and so I stuck with it. And by the time I was probably a sophomore, junior year in high school, realized that I could maybe play in college.
Let's go and talk about those high school days. What was that? How did you see your role, your experience growing as you kind of moved up the ladder on the varsity team?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I was a freshman on the varsity team, and kind of made some waves. There's a former volleyball coach from the St. Paul City, and he's been everywhere. His name is Dennis Amundsen, and he has coached at the University of Minnesota, lots of high-level club. He had known the St. Paul City Conference quite a bit. That at that time didn't have a ton of exposure, and clubs were just getting started in that time too. And he said to my mom during a high school match, he was like, you really should get her into club volleyball. And I had no idea what it was, super nervous about it. I tried out for a club called Northern Lights out of Burnsville, Minnesota. And I remember trying out. I made the 16 twos as a 15-year-old and I walked out because I was so scared about this big club scene. It was just like way outside of my comfort zone. I was nervous. It's funny that later I ended up coaching there. Oh gosh, from 2005 way until 2017, way longer. But it's just funny that those are the memories. I ended up just playing for a small little local club, and thankfully was seen on that club scene by the Minnesota State Mankato coaches at the time, and kind of found my way to college through that.
Well, let's go and talk about that experience. Club, high school, and now college. And these are my words, not yours. Were you the hotshot recruit? Were you the, brand new freshman with wide eyes and going, can I really compete here? What are your memories of that time?
Well, if you asked me back then, I was the greatest thing since sliced bread to volleyball, and I had a very healthy ego. And I think I went through a long growing process through my college years, realizing that, yeah, it does take a team to win in a team sport. And I laugh with my college teammates now. They would always give me so much crap about I just seem to run around my own little circle. I blame it on being an only child. But yeah, I had a healthy ego, but I feel like in college I backed it up. I mean, I was starting since I was a freshman, had a really good career at Mankato and a good experience as a student athlete there as well. And we were good. We started off really bad my freshman year, but there were six freshman starters, excuse me, five freshman starters and one sophomore. And so we were just very young. And then we brought that kind of whole group brought that team to a regional contention team by the time I graduated. So we went from, nothing to something, I feel like, in the time I was there. But yeah, we just, now 25-ish years later, we look back on those times and it's just like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Oh my gosh.
I think most of us have looked back with similar thoughts about, was that really me? Speaking of looking back, you're very successful college coach now. Can you look back to, I'm a big moment guy. Can you look back to a moment, maybe in college, maybe even in high school, that at the time really didn't seem like much, but now looking back with wisdom and perspective, you can point to that moment and say, hey, that was significant for me. Anything stick out?
Yeah, well, two things. So I'll start with my healthy ego to begin with. I feel like people either coach how they were coached, or they change a little bit
Sure.
and coach completely opposite. So it's interesting. I feel like one of my coaching philosophies now is that we are so focused on the team aspect and having people really care about each other as players and as individuals. And so that is what we look for in recruits. That is what we foster on our in the current program I coach in. And so it's just interesting that that was a very different take on when I was, 25 years ago playing. A second thing is my old college coach, who is no longer college coaching, but he wanted me to be a college coach so bad and was pushing and saying, "Come on, let's go to." He took me to ABCA convention, the coaching convention at the time. He wanted me to do all of this stuff. I did some behind the scenes work in my just that fifth year where I was graduating and finishing my classes up, and I did a lot of the video exchange, behind the scenes volleyball stuff. But he was like, "You should really think about coaching." I'd coached club while I was in college, and I just did not want to do it. I was like, nope, it's not me. I'm not going to do it. And so it's just funny that here 25 years later, I'm coaching back in the same conference that I played in.
Again, you just never know where this journey is going to take us. Let's go and take our first break. We're visiting today with Jennifer Jacobs, Dr. Jennifer Jacobs, the head volleyball coach at Augustana University. We're going to hear more about her journey and about her very cool doctoral project. But let's take that break. We are coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the different events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. You put one of these units, whether it's a floor mount or a wall mount, in your gym lobby, in your main hallway, you put it anywhere at your school. It's going to become a magnet for kids, for coaches, for teachers and parents. How about sponsors and alums? Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. Check out their great products today. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes love the videos, and our parents love the streaming, but there is so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com.
Oh, hey, Jake, we use Huddle at Augustana. Absolutely love it. We are also a Huddle school, and they purchased Volumetrics, which is our primary um, video exchange and feedback program that we use for our players and teams. So it's so seamless.
Well, that's so cool. Thanks so much for sharing. And I remember, again, I used Huddle as a football coach, so I knew all about it, but I was a little bit concerned when we became a Huddle school if the other coaches would embrace it. And, we'd all talked about it, but it was just so cool to walk through the gym and see our volleyball coaches, our basketball coaches. They had their cell phone out and they're programming the focus cameras, they're, shooting video of practice and things. You're right. It's just such a valuable tool. That's cool that it continues after high school and the colleges are using it too.
Absolutely. Yep. We expanded for sure. Our football, volleyball programs used it and then went all in, and we've installed multiple cameras now in so we have a second basketball gym really. And then we've installed the cameras in our gym and more outside on the field, and on the soccer field. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, wow. I'm gonna connect you with Huddle so you can do some shout outs for them. For listeners, our guest today is Jennifer Jacobs. She's the head volleyball coach at Augustana University. We're going to hear about that, but Jennifer, I think it's important for our listeners. You have, much younger than me, maybe even younger than you, listeners to the podcast. And I think it's important for them to hear the journey that many of us take in our leadership career. So, what was your journey like after your playing days were over at college at Mankato?
Yeah. So like I said, my coach was wanting me to be a college coach or go into coaching, and I just denounced that entirely at the time. So I ended up moving back home. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My major was psychology, which you can kind of do anywhere and anything. But I moved back home to St. Paul. I found a job working as a assistant volleyball coach, JV, at Harding High School in St. Paul. And then while I was in the gym during preseason, the lead counselor, Ralph Alexander, got to give a shout out to him. At that time, he came down to the gym and I think he was, putting stuff away in a closet. And he was just like, hey, who are you? What do you do? What's your background? And do you need a job? I said, yes, I do. I do. I need a full-time job. So he and Coley McDonough, who is now I believe he's an assistant soup or principal in the North St. Paul Public Schools district. Both of those two were like integral in getting me in a full-time job at Harding High School in St. Paul. So at the time, it was also that would have been 2005. It was during the No Child Left Behind Act. For those of you who are our age and above that remember that, they were pouring money and funds and resources into how to get first generation students into college and navigating that college admissions process and financial aid process. And so I did a lot working in our college and career center. Um, Really trying to be an advocate for the students and figuring out what they could do for post-secondary schooling. So that was the first kind of gig that I started. And during that time, I also started my master's program. And so I have a master's in K-12 principal licensure administration. And so if you would have asked me 15 years ago, I thought I was going to be a high school principal by now. But yeah, so I started working out in K-12 really. Also was at Richfield High School and middle school. Again, kind of being like the liaison in between the African American community and parents and how to navigate the school systems. And so both of those positions were very much bridge positions, kind of helping people navigate the systems that we all live and operate in. And I also happened to coach club volleyball too at that Northern Lights club where I was so nervous to play at one day.
I ask this question quite a bit. Um, there's an expression athletic directors use a lot, maybe coaches use it. You don't know what you don't know. Now, you had done some, little bit of coaching and helping out, but when you became that coach, what were some things that you found out that you didn't know?
Oh my gosh, so many things come to mind. I love that I have former athletes now, even from those early days, uh, who not only stay in contact and stay in connection with me. It's fun seeing, what they all are doing with their lives now. But I will say I have one. Her nickname is Cash Money because Shia Shiong is her name, and her dad now runs a club, a smaller club up in the Twin Cities still, and she always reminds me of her sophomore year, I think it was. And I was probably maybe 2 years into being a varsity head coach and young for that. And she goes, "Do you remember when we weren't talking at practice one day and you just had enough? And so you walked out of the gym and you turned the lights off on the way and you said something to the effect of, well, if you can't talk, try to play in the dark then." And then you walked out of the gym. And I said, I do not remember that incident for the record, but it left a memory in her mind. And those are things that like you just don't know what you don't know. There's that does not work for coaching, note to self, and I thought it would.
Wow. Again, I can look back at some of those missteps I had as a young coach. Um, Making the jump from, club coach, which again, no disrespect to, any club coach out there, to the college head coaching world. How did that all happen?
Yeah. Yeah. So the athletic director, actually, Todd Olson, also shout out to him. He was the athletic director at Richfield High School when I was there. And his son, I believe his middle son, was playing baseball for Hamlin at the time. So this would have been 2009-ish. He, or no, excuse me, 2012-ish. He knew that there was a assistant volleyball coach and assistant athletic director role at Augsburg, was college at the time, now university. It's right in the heart of Minneapolis. D3 in the MIAC conference. And he encouraged me to apply to that. And I was nervous, but he was like, I think it's right up like along your strengths. And so I jumped in with 2 feet and applied and got the job. And it really, that time frame, that 2012 year, and 13, I was also then head coaching the 18 ones at Northern Lights, which they were all power four D1 athletes. And I was in the chair of head coach of some very high level volleyball players at the time on the club level. And so I think both of those jobs set me up for where I am now. But I enjoyed my time at Augsburg. It was amazing. I got to do a lot of different things because of the dual role between administration and coaching. Um, and I learned a lot during that time, an absolute ton of stuff.
Let's go and jump down that rabbit hole. What's one thing that really sticks out for you now that you, as we like to say, put in your toolbox and you continue to use?
Yeah, the one thing I think I really learned, especially with Jeff Swenson, who's the athletic director there, he's now stepping down. However, I just felt like, and Jane Becker, the head coach at the time, volleyball. It's just if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And so I just really appreciate that. It's kind of helped me. I feel like I'm a lifelong learner, but it's helped me just frame up who I surround myself with, trying to always be around people who can teach me something too. And again, like as you grow older and you get more settled and more kind of settled in who you are as a person, it's okay to not know everything. And I think a lot of people start out their careers thinking that you have to know everything, and you just, the older you get, you just don't. You surround yourself people who know more than you in certain areas. And the amount of hours that I spent the first couple years in my career trying to be a master at everything, it just ends up burning out in the long run. And so I think those are a couple lessons I learned from those two, is how to balance it all.
Oh yeah, well, balance, that the work life, however you want to call it, and it's never a balance because if it is a balance, you're going to get fired. But
Right.
being able to find that right um, mesh, if you will, of work and home or work and life. Um, in our next segment, we're going to talk about your current position at Augustana. What was it about that particular job that spoke to you? Did you pursue that? Did they come after you? What was that about?
Yeah, that was an interesting process as well. I wasn't looking to leave Augsburg at the time, but I kind of had reached the pinnacle at the time of kind of I felt like I did what I could do. The volleyball program was up and going. Jane and I had a good relationship. The team was successful on on the athletic administration side. I kind of had hit the top of things I could do. I was chair of the staff senate. Did a lot of committee work across campus. Kind of had the checks and balances of my day-to-day life taken care of on the athletic administration side. And so I was ready for something different. Um, and God works in the mysterious ways. I had the previous athletic director at Augustana, Slade Larscheid. He is now at South Dakota State University. I had met him my first year at Augsburg, and he was one of his first years as the AD at Augustana. And he had called me the 5 years later and said, I know you're looking for full-time administration. I have a head volleyball job open here. I think you should take a look at it. And I was like, no, 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 I'm not thinking about it. And he said, nope, I really think you should come down, just come interview. And I remember that interview. It was in March, really late February, early March of 2017. And I walked on Augustana's campus and I was like, oh, yeah, I can see myself here. This is it. This is they got it going on here. And that, that interview day, it was a long day. But it just flowed. It flowed so freely. I loved my experience. And within, I think it was 2 days later, I was offered and accepted the job here. So, and I've been here for 8 years, going on 9 years now.
Well, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to take a deep dive into all things Augustana volleyball and Jen Jacob. So let's take that break, but we are going to come back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thank you to our good friends at Home Campus. Home Campus is one of those platforms you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, results. For me, the athletic eligibility and clearance platform alone is the gold standard. To find out more, just go to homecampus.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. That's homecampus.com. We also want to thank our good friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. I'm telling you, it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out all of their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. It's snapraise.com. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to have you creating world-class social media content in seconds. If you don't have a communications director, a communications department, or if you are those two things, you're going to want to go to Gipper. It's used and trusted by over 20,000 high school and college athletic directors. And whether it's a simple social media post celebrating a big win or an entire newsletter that showcases all the great things that your athletic department is doing for the community, the team at Gipper is going to have you up and running. It's in no time. In fact, it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com. Once again, don't forget to mention the podcast. That's Gipper.com. You're going to be glad you did. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Dr. Jennifer Jacobs. She's the head volleyball coach at Augustana University. Jennifer, you shared a little bit about how you ended up at Augustana. Let's hear about your program. What are some things that you're really proud of? What are some things that you want people to know about Augustana University and Augustana volleyball?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it here. So Augustana is number one, it's back in the same conference that I played in, and so it feels like home already to the in the beginning. And I feel like We're just it's a special place. It's a small private liberal arts institution, about 2,000 day undergrad students, um, very high academic, and very high level volleyball. So we're in the NSIC conference on any given night. We're playing a nationally ranked, a regionally ranked opponent. And so we attract high performing players and high performing students. And so that's probably like the number one. I don't have to worry about grades at all because these women are on top of their stuff. They come into college knowing what they want to do. They have a mission. They want to win. They work hard. They're just these great people overall too. And so I just feel lucky that we get to be around them every day. Um, yeah, that's like the number one thing that I would just say about Augustana.
Now, when you first came, people talk about, building a culture, creating a culture. Sometimes you walk in and you go, wow, this is pretty good. I need to become a part of this culture. What was it like when you first arrived at Augustana?
Yeah. Okay. So two things. Number one, I think that I was very intimidated in the beginning. Augustana is known for winning across all sports. A lot of the coaches have been here for a number of years. I think on any given year, we have three or four coaches of the year, or conference coaches of the year, regional coaches of the year, national coaches of the year. So, this being my first head coaching job, I think I was a little bit nervous in that aspect. It was kind of like, whoa, you have to perform here. So, very high expectations. But then once you start to kind of get your feet wet, you're like, okay, I can figure this out. I can handle it. And the program, the volleyball program itself was kind of going under a change. So the previous coach before me, Dan Meskey, he is now the head coach at Louisville Volleyball. Um, he was only here for 18 months. And so it was kind of in a little bit of a disarray. He had just gotten his kind of culture set here and kind of working into what was the next to come when he ended up moving on to Louisville. And so I feel like I kind of came in a time of a little bit of turmoil, just trying to figure that out. And it definitely took me some time to kind of figure out, okay, who am I as a head coach? What do I want this program to be? And thankfully, I could lean on the coaches here. So Coach Oseshki is the head football coach. He was an offensive coordinator in Mankato when I was a student athlete there. So I had him to kind of lean on. Small little world there. And then Tim Huber, very successful baseball coach here, a national championship coach. He was a fifth year senior baseball player at Mankato when I was also there playing. And so I leaned on a lot of people. Kind of how do I create the culture that we want here? And then of course the alumni have been great. It's been fun. I'm in my 40s now, and it's been great to have the players that I played against in the league re-engage with the program, because there's that little connection there.
Boy, great points. I'm trying to decide which direction I want to go first. Um, Going back to that inaugural season, because I think this is an area that can be a stumbling block for coaches or for ADs. Um, what was your and you described very well the situation that you inherited with the previous coach, leaving after just 18 months. What were some things that you knew that you really needed or wanted to do like yesterday? And what was maybe one or two things that you said, okay, this can wait till next year. I want to let them get to know me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes. And if I were to take over a program now, I would do it completely differently than what I did back then, right? You only know as much until you do it. And I'm not saying it went awful, but there were some definite bumps and bruises along the road. Yeah, the team I inherited, thank the Lord, were also very senior heavy. So there were two fifth year senior starters, and three other seniors and a junior that had all played the year prior. And so they were very, very experienced, very good. They knew what it took to win on the court. And I think as a new coach or new athletic director or new anybody, you want to come in and kind of make your stamp on things. And me now, if I could tell me then, I really didn't have to do that then, even though I wanted to so bad. And so I think there were just some things that you got to pick and choose your battles, right? And try to figure out which ones you want to go with. There were a couple that I was like, yeah, this is what we're gonna do, and this is kind of the stepping stones to where this is gonna be later. but I think I probably would have chose different battles. Looking back on that time now, I got to give it to my former assistant, Ellen Andrews. She put up with a lot with me. She's now at Arizona State, and she had played at Augie, so an alum. Then again, like the nice thing about Augustana and the volleyball program in particular is that the alumni really care about the program. And there were a lot of alumni that are still close physically in town. And they were always a phone call away. Like, hey, how did Augie do this back in the day? How is this supposed to be now? How would you like to see Augie volleyball in the future? And so that was a lot. I did a lot of work there to kind of gauge, and I still do that now on where we should be and what we're doing, just to kind of make sure that we're living out the kind of the Augustana volleyball legacy.
Right. And that's such an important, point that I think a lot of young and sometimes, older, coaches and ADs just don't understand is, hey, the schools, unless you're starting up, unless it's a startup program, school's been around for a while. So, there's some important things you might want to do your research before you go, stumbling in there to change everything. Um, Jennifer, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but let's do it now. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit more about, how you develop and how you run your program, or if they just want to add you as a connection, what's the best way that they can do that?
Yes. So the best way to reach out to me is via email. It's Jacobs, Jacobs at Augie, AUGIE.edu. You can also follow me on social media. It's at Ms. MZ Jen Jacobs. That's on, I suppose, X now, no longer Twitter, and Instagram as well. So you can find me there. I do love to connect with people, and I believe in the power of talking and listening and learning from others. So please, I encourage you, reach out if you want to talk. I'm always up for a cup of coffee, virtual cup of coffee, whatever you think.
All right. I love it. Let's go and take another break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but we are going to come back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see all of their great products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. It's tremendously versatile. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. You really got to check out their products. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Make sure you mention the podcast, sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to thank our friends at Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others. And it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're completing your master's degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Go to ohio.edu/info/MAA for more information. We also want to say thank you to our good friends at Hometown. Hometown is not just about digital ticketing anymore. Of course, they still do it, but Hometown's changing the game for schools and organizations with their entire suite of solutions. Of course, they still do digital ticketing, but they have fundraising, they have athletic websites construction, and a whole lot more. If you're an athletic director, a coach, or a school administrator, you need to go to hometown.com. They make it easy for you and your school to save time, raise more money, and even bring your community together. The website is hometown.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. That's hometown.com. Check them out today. Welcome back once again to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Dr. Jennifer Jacobs. Jennifer, I'm just going to set this up and then I'm going to get out of the way. You shared your doctoral study dissertation program, and it's just so perfect for our podcast and for our listeners. Can you share maybe how you ended up in that subject area, and obviously we want to hear the results.
Yes, yes. So I'll start off with the actual title, and I'm going to read it verbatim just so that we have it out there. So I really focused on the perceptions of inclusion, and the impact that they have on Black women's experience working in collegiate athletics administration. And it's a very long title, but I've come to this point in my entire working life, right? Being kind of one of the frequently only or a small population of uh, Black women working in collegiate athletics or educational settings. And what does that feel like? What does it mean for us? And so it really prompted me to want to actually study this. And I have a lot of colleagues and friends who are also Black women, also working in collegiate athletics. And we would frequently have kind of ad hoc conversations about what it's like. And I was like, I need to figure out how to capture this. In a research project. And so that's really how I landed on it. Um, and I wanted to take a different angle. So in my initial research, doing the lit review and all of the kind of drudgery in the beginning of the research, I found a lot of information around what BIPOC identified women, Black women had to do to give up or had to give of themselves to be an athletic director, to be an assistant athletic director, to be a head coach. And little research, priorly research was focused on the environment that they were working in. And so I kind of wanted to flip the script and look at what environments are women working in and what does that mean for their experience.
Yeah, again, there's no question. We talk about this frequently on the podcast. For in just really high school athletic administration, I think only 25% of all high school athletic directors are women, and certainly the numbers are going to be lower for women of color and minorities. So good for you for putting a brighter spotlight on this topic. And what are some of the findings that you came up with?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. I ended up interviewing 9 women across division NCAA affiliated Division One, Division Two, Division Three. I interviewed women kind of in that either deputy, associate, or assistant athletic director title. So not the top chair, but kind of in the middle ranges, trying to figure out this pipeline as women ascend to that AD chair or even higher spaces. And there's a couple different ways I looked at it. Since I was more focused on the environment, I really took the framework around inclusive leadership and what does that mean for Black women while they're working in these positions. And so I'll tell you a little bit of research behind the scenes. So Veli Korkmaz in 22 did an extensive review of 107 peer-reviewed articles trying to first define what inclusive leadership is. And they really consolidated that definition as fostering employees' uniqueness, strengthening belongingness within a team, supporting organizational efforts, and showing appreciation. So I framed up my research on that space. Like, what are leaders of Black women doing in regards to those 4 aspects so that Black women can thrive working in collegiate athletics administration?
Well, how I know that in a lot of projects like this, it's surveys. Was there any face-to-face interviews or Zoom, or how did you collect your data?
Yes, so I did face-to-face, well, Zoom face-to-face interviews with the women, and they lasted for about an hour, hour and a half, depending. And I really focused my questions. I had 4 kind of questions that I asked the women. Basically, tell me about a time you felt included in the workplace, and how did that make you feel? What happened in that moment? And the opposite of that, tell me about a time that you felt excluded in the workplace. What did that feel like? What happened? And then I asked them around just their general interaction with diversity and inclusion plans, because this is also around the same time that the NCAA dictated that there was an athletics diversity and inclusion designee in each athletics department. And so I was really trying to figure out, is there a connection to that or not in regards to the women's experience? The biggest finding I feel like that I had, there was lots of things that came out of those interviews, but the biggest finding that I feel like is just a sticker point is for Black women to feel included in the workplace and feel that they can thrive in that athletics administrative role, it takes an active boss or leader. So whoever's above them being inclusive by design on purpose. So the default is to be exclusive. And I just thought that was really interesting as I got dug into the data. That came up for online women. None of the women had a story related to an inclusive moment or feeling at work without it being tied to something their boss or leader or supervisor did. So that could be the AD, maybe it's a chancellor, whoever they reported to. Um, on the flip side, simply being the only. So if a Black woman is the only person that looks like them in a department, in a collegiate athletics department, um, there's a feeling of isolation, and it's something that's very palpable and something to note for current athletic directors or future athletic directors or leaders of Black women. And so just being cognizant of that is almost half of the battle. I'm such a nerd about this stuff. I could talk about it for days. There was just so many fascinating things that came out of those conversations. But I think the biggest one was that for Black women to feel that they can thrive in their roles, their leaders, their bosses, their supervisors, have to play an active role in making them feel included.
Um, Again, the personal stories I'm sure are the most powerful. Without sharing a name or an institution, can one or two that really struck a chord with you? Can you share those
Yes.
messages
Oh my
so
gosh.
maybe our listeners can put those in their toolbox?
Yes, there were so many. And in the research, there were unfortunately more stories around exclusive moments and feelings than there were inclusion. And so some examples, let's see, we had a woman who where somebody invited her to attend a kind of a specialty event. And it was somebody above the current boss, and the current boss showed distaste and was upset with her for being invited to this, even though it wasn't even her own doing. And voiced an opinion saying that they would have rather somebody else in the department be invited to this event instead of this woman, and they were on the same level as far as degrees and titles. And so while that sounds like a very minute thing, it gave that woman, that interviewee, she had anxiety. She had lots of just emotional responses to passing her boss in the office and that kind of thing. That's only one. I'll give you one more. There was a woman in my study. You can, if you anybody ever reads my study, she referred to an entire institution as Boo Boo You, and it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, but she boo boo is a phrase that comes out of the African American community about being just like awful and just like ugh, horrible experience. And so I couldn't not use it because she referred to quote unquote boo boo you for the whole time we had our conversation. And from she had stories from not being invited to certain things or certain events, not being asked for her expertise. She oversaw a particular large division within athletics, and her leader or boss would go to other people around her before they went to her, and she also happened to be the only Black woman. All of the women that interviewed had been the only Black women on staff at some point in time in their career. And just that alone, we had lots of stories around kind of feeling like they had to wear an armor walking into a meeting where they were the only ones that looked like them, or getting into the office on a regular day, like, okay, here I go. I need to make sure I'm on my P's and Q's. I need to make sure I have all my information correct. Whatever that did, there was just an extra level, an added layer of stress, work, preparation, time, follow-up, you name it, that the women that interviewed felt they had to have and do just to exist in their jobs. And I think that's the key point, is that not everyone has to do that. And I think I experienced that, and I think others experience that just in general.
Wow. Again, can't thank you enough for sharing, your perspective and the perspective of the women in your study, with our listeners. Just another much needed reminder for all of us in the leadership position to, take that extra step, to be inclusive, intentionally inclusive rather than exclusive. Great stuff. Um, Jen, this has been so cool spending time with you. We're definitely going to bring you back on the podcast. I think you bring a great perspective and a lot of wisdom too. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with something we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're not currently an AD, but you certainly know your way around the world of athletic leadership. So, we're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director or a brand new leader on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. So let's take that break. And when we come back, we're going to see what Dr. Jennifer Jacobs puts in her new athletic director toolbox. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. You know, athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic Surveys is going to connect you to that group so you can hear their concerns and hopefully address them. But they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders who support your program. And having that collection of data is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent or a frustrated student athlete, or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program, whether it's your school, your department, or your team. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast, athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with a new friend, Dr. Jennifer Jacobs. She's the head volleyball coach at Augustana University. As you have heard, she has a tremendous background in athletics and athletic leadership. But right now, I'm going to task her with sending out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let her put 3 items in the toolbox. So, Jennifer, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Okay, for this is going to be a little specific because I just did the research on overseeing Black women, and but it happens. And so the number one thing I would think for leaders, athletic directors, you name it, if you oversee a Black woman that's maybe an assistant or associate or deputy athletic director role, or even a head coach role, um, being very, and this is for any race, creed, you name it, as far as leaders go, it is just in relation to leading Black women in collegiate athletics administration. Just number one is be very cognizant of isolation. So if that person that you were overseeing happens to be the only Black woman on staff, it is going to take extra work on your end to make sure that they can thrive in their position and role. And if they're thriving in their position and role, then your department is going to be stronger and more efficient because of that. Two, making sure that Black women have a voice, that they're at the table. If you have an assistant athletic director or associate athletic director or deputy AD that's a Black woman, just make sure that that you value their voice, you openly value their voice, and you take their comments and thoughts and show intentional interest in that, value their opinion. It's a very important to creating an inclusive environment for them and others. And then along with that, this is kind of my like 2.5-ish. It would be standing up for Black women in contentious moments. So when you're the only Black woman or one of few, there can be moments where other colleagues at the same level or different levels may not see eye to eye. And so it's really important that Black women are not alienated in public in those moments. You can certainly have private conversations, but the spotlight of being an other it can be extremely harsh on women's experience while they're working in these positions. And then lastly, I know it's a little bit tough kind of in our given our political environment at the moment, but really there is a tie to having a diversity and inclusion plan. Some other of the words that you can phrase, you could say psychologically, a psychologically safe environment if you want to use that phrase. But it's really important to have that sort of plan and action on how the environment's going to be for everybody, so that they can be their full selves and so that everyone can thrive in their jobs, and particularly Black women can thrive in their positions.
Well, again, you probably saw me furiously scribbling everything down. I love the suggestions, both, let's say in a global application, but as you mentioned them specifically, in that DEI space, with, women, anyone of color, making sure that their voices are heard, making sure that they are supported and encouraged. Great, great reminders. One more time, Jennifer, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, find out more about your research, about your program, or just connect with you, what's the best way that they can do that?
Absolutely. Email me anytime, Jacobs, Jacobs, at Augie, Augie, .edu. Or you can follow me on social media at Ms. MZ Jen Jacobs. That's on X and I believe Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, just Jennifer Jacobs. And I will never get sick of being called doctor. So that sticks with me for life.
Well, Doctor, thanks so much for sharing with our listeners today. All the best moving forward with all the things that you're doing, and of course, Augustana Volleyball. And you and I are going to talk after this. We are definitely going to get you back on the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
For our listeners, we want to say thanks to you and just remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day. We try to share stories and best practices from the world of athletics. So come back and join us again for the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.